Well, everybody, welcome back to the Building Investors YouTube channel. I am walking towards the tiny house currently. We're getting ready to do the roof. And so I'm gonna start off the whole saga of the roof. We got the materials ordered. We've got the paint for the trim. We've got the trim, I should say, first and then the paint. So I've got some of the trim laid out here on the sawhorses. And we're gonna paint the back, the top, bottom, the front with some nice exterior black paint that we can match the roof. Let me turn you around and I'll show you. So we've got the roofing metal here. We got the actual steel for the roof wrapped up there in that white stuff. We've got the ridge cap. We've got the eave metal, and then we've got some what do you call it, drip edge. It's gonna go over that. So, but before we can do that, we got to start with the bottom layer, which is this. This is a let's see, what's it called? LP Smart Side trim, 1x8 or 4/4 thick by 8 inches, which I think is probably more like 7 1/4. That's going to go up here, and we're going to nail it on there, and it'll hang down just a little bit below that there. And then we put our vented soffit in there. It'll dead end into that nicely, and we'll be able to caulk it and paint it look good. So that'll be another step later on. I'll show you once we get there. But the chore right now is to paint this. The reason I'm painting the back, the top, the bottom, and the face of it is just for waterproofing sake, because this stuff is just plywood based. Oriented strand board, OSB. It is nice stuff, but I want to make it as waterproof as possible, especially since it'll be up there where all the snow may be collecting and stuff. Now the drip edge and all the roofing stuff should keep it dry, but just for good measures, we're going to paint it all. So anyways, I got my tray here, and I've got a little bit of roller and a pad and a brush, and I've got the paint here inside the tiny house. So as you'll notice, the tiny house is full of stuff. I mean, not completely full, but it's got stuff in it. So anyways, we had to move out of our apartment, and so the garage needed to be empty, and so we emptied it and put it in there. So eventually it'll get organized and put in, we bought a storage container, which is kind of cool news here. Let me zoom in on it. Towards the back of the property over there is a shipping container, a nice 40-foot high cube container. I'll put the video of moving that to the property here. And then now that we've got that moved, we can work on painting this. So anyways, let's get started. But before we start painting that, I got a little distracted by someone whistling at me. The shipping container, the purpose of that is to get all of our stuff stored in there. Right now it's got the mattresses and couches and stuff that won't fit in our camper, but eventually we'll go in the tiny house. And so we got the shipping container just for that, to keep all the things stored and tools and stuff that I don't want to be in the tiny house. And so now that we have that moved and in place, we can store stuff. Eventually I'll be building shelves in there too. Maybe you'll see that in the future. But now that that's there, we can start working on the roof, get all waterproofed and everything. So next up, paint these like Grace said. So let's get to it. So I went to Home Depot to get my Behr Ultra, which is my favorite paint so far that I've ever used. And I got it in a color called black, because our trim is going to be black. I mean, our roof trim is going to be black. The rest of it will be probably white, and the roof is black. And I wanted a color that matched the roof metal as best as possible. And so they said black would be good. They do have one that's like darker, more black, that's called Limousine or something like that. I think black is just fine. When I like to get my colors, paint for properties and such, I usually try to get like a basic white for the trim, and then ceiling white for the ceilings. And then if I pick a color for the wall, I try to make sure it's the same thing. So no matter which property I work on, if it's a rental, I try my best to use the same paint over and over again. It makes it easy. You don't have to have a bunch of different cans of different paint colors. You just go with it. So this one's black. So simple as that. Let's paint. got our scaffolding set up. We've got 2 coats of paint on that, which we've got 6 more to paint, I think. But for now, 4 will get us started. And now that we've got the scaffolding set up, because I have it, might as well use it. We can roll it around. Eventually, I'll blow off all the stuff on the roof here. But we need to get this trim board put on here. But we want to do the side one first. Probably. So we'll probably do this one first. Nail it on here, and then nail the one on front here after we cut this one flush. That's my guesstimation. We'll see. We could flip that around once I decide. This ice guard here is supposed to go over top of your drip edge and over top of that trim. Not necessarily the trim, but over top of the drip edge. That way the water flows over top of this and then down the drip edge. But since we had to stick this on before we could do that, we might have to, see that catch? We might have to put some sort of tape from here to here, which isn't the most ideal, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. So anyways, let's do trim next. We'll have to get the air compressor out, nail it up here, and then cut it off. There is the first trim board. That looks so much nicer. I'm probably going to stay in the area, probably do this one next, and then do the drip edge, and then move on and do that all the way around. So next up, that piece. Okay, it's gonna be a bit shaky because you're hanging on with no arms. I guess, I don't know. You only have feet. You have 3 feet. And one of them's hanging off the edge. So if you fall, I'm sorry. But I put you up here in this precarious situation to explain that since I don't have 2 people and I can't butt this up flush without putting a board here to stop me and all that stuff, I just decided to run it a little bit long, and then I can come back with my straight edge, run my saw along there and cut it. That way when I bring this one down, it doesn't interfere with this. And so the reason I'm doing that this way, although I would prefer the look of the front to be all flat laid across, and it probably doesn't really matter because everything will be mechanically flashed over top of it. I'm gonna let that one run all the way through. Eventually we're gonna have gutters, and so you won't see the end of it either. I may regret that later, but anyways, I'm gonna cut this off. Good old safety squints on. Even though I have safety glasses on my head. Anyways, next, cut the next board. Okay, now that we got that cut, wipe it off a little bit. Nice, clean, flush cut. We take our little paint roller that we just painted everything with, touch up the end, cover those nail holes. Probably come back and caulk. Like you can see that these nails went in a little bit deeper than those 2. So we'll come back and do that. But just make sure everything's pretty and watertight. Okay, now that we've got that done, come back with drip edge. Probably caulk those first. Drip edge coming up. So as you can see, we've got the fascia board all the way around from the top up there, which we'll have to cut. We'll use a level and mark it. I'll show you that later. But from there down to there, all the way across here, and then up here, and then we've come back with caulking, which is still drying, which I'm happy to see that it dries blacker than this, because right now that looks gray. Filling in any gaps there, sealing along there, sealing around the nail holes. It's a little drier there, so you can see it kind of disappears a bit. We'll probably still come by with a roller and just touch it up. And all the way around there. So next up, I was going to do the flashing, the drip edge, which would come underneath this, ideally, over top of this. But the drip edge I bought is bigger than I wanted. So it's going to hang down to like right there, which I would not like. So I'm going to go buy some shorter drip edge, which will still come up here, probably about there. And then drip over, but I don't want it to go that far down, because when I do the gutters, I don't want my gutters hanging way down here. I want the water to run off, because just envision the water running off like this. If I put this gutter at the tip of my speed square, it has a better chance of the water going in it. Even better chance. Let me see if I can point here. I don't think I can. Anyways, envision that sitting here. If the water runs off at any speed at all, if the gutter's down here, starting down here, that water has a chance to just bypass the gutter. So I want the gutter to be up higher, which means I need to bring the shorter drip edge. So I'll put the shorter drip edge on, bring my gutter up to here. That when the water runs off, instead of having a chance to run over top of the gutter, it'll run into it. So envision the point of this speed square. Instead of the gutter being there, I'll raise the tip of it there, so the water runs off will fall in here instead of going over. Anyways, I think I said the same thing 4 times there, but anyways, I'll bring you up to speed once we get to that point. I'll do the rest of this off camera, because this can be a long video about roofing, so we'll skip that. We'll do this the rest of the way around, and I'll bring you back once we do some drip edge. Okie dokie, we have made it all the way around. We've got all the fascia board on, except for a piece over there I'll show you real quick. But I just wanted to give you an update before I put the drip edge on. So I got that all the way around. I said I was going to show you how to cut that up there, so I'm going to show that to you real quick. Just finished cutting that flush and then caulking it to make sure it's all sealed and nice. So next up, we might just probably blow off the roof, get all these pine needles off of it. But anyways, if you're going to be cutting this here, there's a couple ways of doing it. So this roof is a 412 pitch. And so you can take your speed square, set it on here, turn it to 412, and then you can mark it and then cut it. Or you can bring it up here just in case there's any deviation on your pitch. You can mark the top where the peak is, and then take a level and draw a level line from that line down to here. Take your saw and cut it, and then you can take that piece, reverse it, and stick it here. Take the cut off of here, mark it onto this one upside down, and it will make a perfect matching line. And then if you have any deviation in your framing, like this one, this 2x6 was slightly over a bit or a bit smaller than this one, so I had to take a little shim to shim that out. Not important really, because the eave trim will go over that and you won't see the difference, but I like it to be flush if I can. So anyways, take a level, make a straight line from your peak, cut it, put the next one on, nail it, caulk it, good to go. And then the piece I was going to show you over here, I'm going to do this piece probably after we get the metal on the roof here. So you can see this piece comes up and then it's cut to a point. So I want to make sure I have enough room to feed this metal up under there. And so I don't want to put this piece on until after that, because if a rib ends up being right there, I don't want this to be hanging down and to tear it back off and all that stuff. So anyways, that's that. Next up, blow off the stuff, start with the drip edge, bada bing bada boom, put a roof on, start taking shape. So let's do it. Okay, it's time for drip edge, which is going to be down here. I'm standing precariously on top of the scaffolding, a little blue part you see right there. I'm standing on that right now on the other side. super safe. So anyways, next up is the drip edge. And I said earlier that I was gonna go buy smaller drip edge for the gutters, which is still true, but I'm going to actually use this drip edge, which right here, there, which is that big, which is bigger than I want for gutters. But what I'm gonna do is this house is only gonna have gutters probably above the door. The rest of it probably won't have gutters. And if I need to do gutters one day, I'll figure it out then. I can always unscrew it and then put in the smaller drip edge. Won't be easy, but I don't expect myself doing it, so we shall see. So anyways, we're gonna take that piece of metal, flip it up here, and nail it on here. And then we're gonna come back and seal it. So ideally this ice guard will go over top of it. But like I've already explained probably multiple times, is that this ice guard's been up here for a while. So what I'm gonna do, instead of trying to get this off, it's gonna just tear. It's already glued down here. I'm gonna put the drip edge up here, nail it off, and then I'm gonna take a piece of tape. I'm gonna take the same stuff, this ice guard, I have an extra roll of it down yonder. I cut like 4 to 6 inches off of it, and I'm gonna use it to tape from that to that. Not ideal, but it's gonna be hard for water to get up in here and go back underneath. So it's good enough for my house. If I were to do it all over again, I'd make sure that this was on before I did the roof, but like I said, I was out of time, so I probably wouldn't have done it any differently anyway. So I'm gonna leave it up here, put Kirsten on a tripod, don't fall off, and I'll try not to do the same. So anyways, let's nail it up, and then I'll go over it again real quick with you, but pretty simple stuff. I'll put my earplugs in now, because that little nailing gun is tough on the ears when it's right next to your face. Okay. I'm gonna run this all the way to the end, flush. Just like that. You'll notice on the end of this, it's called drip edge because it has that edge on it. I don't know if you can see where it kicks out there. That kicks the water out so it doesn't run down your fascia. So we're gonna run this to the end, push it down, and nail it off. This is the same roofing stuff, like I said, as this. It's cut down, and it is super sticky. Like, you do not want to get this stuck to itself or stuck to something you don't want to unstuck from, because it doesn't come off. Which is why I'm using it for this, because it gives me good assurance that there's not going to be any water getting in from there, even if it does get back up in here, which I highly doubt. And then there's a nice sticky edge here now for this, for the metal to stick onto, even though we'll have a piece here. I'll explain that in a minute. The nailer I'm using for this is just a plain old roofing nailer. This one's made by Boss Stitch. Use it for shingles, for siding, not necessarily for siding, but for applications where you're doing trim like that. It has a nice flat nose on it, and you can hold down the trigger and just punch it, or you can set it to where you don't need to hold the trigger, you can just hit it, I'm pretty sure. And then you get a coil of nails inside of there. Get it done, just replace it. Bada bing, bada boom. Okay, next up, I'm gonna keep running this down until we get to the part where I'm going to lower roof, and I'll have to go buy the drip edge for that. So next up, roofing metal. I'll show you how you prep for that. One other thing to mention while we're up here is that if you have a building that's longer than just one piece and you need to put multiple to reach across, you're going to want to overlap. So I like to overlap mine at least 2 inches, if not 4 inches, depending on how much I have. But 2 inches is plenty, and you can seal behind this joint before you stick it on. That way, if any water gets in anyway, it won't be able to get behind this and down. But for the most part, everything will be sealed by this tape. So just wanted to go over what you do when you come across that, because if you butt them together, there's going to be a seam there for water to get into, and that's no bueno. So that's that. Okay, let's explain what we just did there. As you can see, you're on time, let's watch me drill some holes. Drilled some holes here at the bottom. These ones are 2 inches from the bottom because the drip edge is going to go right here underneath. And want this to hang over about 3/4 of an inch or an inch. We're probably shooting for an inch on ours. And so we measured 2 inches up, that way an inch in, it's secured nice and tight. And then every 2 foot from the end, so 2, 4, 6, 8. And at the top, we'll go ahead and put some screws in here as well underneath of the top cap, whatever they call that thing. So anyways, we'll worry about those once we get up there. But every 2 feet gives it nice secure enough. You could probably do it a little bit further apart, but 2 feet seems to be enough for me. So anyways, I got 5 of those done. That way we can take them up there. We're actually going to start on the other side and put those on. And then we'll start having waterproof roof. So we got screws, bags of screws over here. I believe we just got 1-inch screws because we're just going into OSB. We're not going into any framing. So I'll take those, bundle those, and put in my pocket. And we'll start screwing those up. So let's carry those around, start laying them down. If I have my videos in the right order, you should have seen me just drill all of the holes in the metal, which means that I'm up here now getting ready to install it. Now what I did was, all the ones you saw me drill, I actually put on the back side over there. So maybe I'll climb up over there later and show you. The whole back side's done already. I did that because I haven't done a rental roof for a long time, so I wanted to do it before I explained anything. But the problem is I got a little drill happy, and I drilled probably an extra 3 panels. So there's a short panel and a long panel. The short panel goes up here because it's a less of a pitch. The long panel goes here because it's a little bit more of a run. And so if I were to stick like the short panels on here, obviously it's not going to fit. So I have this one staged up here because this one's going to be going right here. The problem is I drilled all of these in the orientation for that side of the roof. And the reason that's a problem is because there's an overlapping. So you see how this one has like a little leg on the outside here? Extends like almost 3/16 of an inch. And this side has nothing. It drops off straight there, if you can see that. So these are made to overlap each other. And this one goes on the bottom, and then the next sheet goes over top of it. So pretend this is another sheet. This one snaps right over top of this rim. That way you don't have this leg sticking out on that side. This side just goes flat. So it goes left to right. Or if you're left-handed and you want to go right to left, it doesn't really matter which direction you go, as long as they're overlapping the correct direction. The problem is I drilled all of these for that side of the roof, and so when I bring it around, I'm going the opposite direction. If I hadn't pre-drilled these extra 3, I would have started on that side like I did on that side and worked my way across. The main thing is you want the ribs, you want those to line up on the top of the roof. So if you're looking straight down from like a bird's eye view, you're not going to have offset ribs. You can't notice it unless you're standing up top, but if you're a good roofer, it's important. So this one, if I start it here, which is how I started that one on that side, I'm going to work this direction, and those ribs on top will line up, which is important to me. So anyways, the problem is I drilled these. If I were to drill these for this side, I would have flipped the panel and started my first drill 2 inches up and then every 2 feet from there. But instead I have it oriented the wrong way. I already said that anyways. So just keep that in mind when you do that. So we're going to stick this one up here, and then it's going to be a little bit more of a pain. Usually you set them on top, but this one, when I put the next one on to the left here, I'll have to tuck it under that hem. It'll work out. It's not a big deal. It's not a big roof. This one, I haven't drilled the holes for it yet. All those steel panels are down there. And so I can drill them in the right orientation. Not a big deal. We can go left to right, right to left, whatever we choose. So, anywho, I should say that you can drill these or punch these. Most roofers punch them. I don't have a punch with me, so I just drilled them. You don't even have to drill them. You can mark them. And I'm getting a little long-winded here probably, but I drilled them because I want consistent holes at consistent measurements. So 2 inches up every 2 feet. But if I were to just randomly throw the screws up here, you could do a chalk line and put the screws in. I like to put the screws in on this side because when you come across, this one's going to be hanging over top of the other piece. And so if I were to put the screw over here, this one would flap. I don't want a double screw necessarily. I could. I have done that before. It looks nice. But I want this screw as close to the edge as possible to hold this left-hand side down. So I'm putting the screws on the left side of each of these openings. So that's the reasoning for all of that. Anyways, that was a lot to say. I'm putting this up here, and then this little rubber piece is the next step. And so this goes underneath of the ribs here, So all of the birds and bees and all that stuff can't get in there and do their thing. Anyways, so these are 9 inches on center. And so sometimes you can stretch them and they'll get out of alignment. So sometimes I'll just run a tape from the beginning here, 9, 18, 27, 36. So you'll see a little black mark there and there. That just knows, I put those there so I know where the top of the ribs are going to line up so I can stick them down. Because in the sun or the cold, these things can grow and shrink. So, and then as you can tell, this side slides into this side. So as you get your box of them, they're just stickers. So you peel them off your sticker and you stick them in there all the way down. So let me put you on the camera up here and you can watch the whole thing in regular speed. Anyways, let's do it. Hi. And I've got a bag of screws in my left pocket here in my TrueWork pants. Not sponsored by them yet, but I sure love their pants. So anyways, if you're watching this TrueWork, send me some goods, will you? I forgot to mention all of this metal stuff is cuttable by tin snips or a ribbed tool. There's a Milwaukee tool just for that. Anyways, shears. That's all you need. That's all you need. That's all I'm gonna say. And there's a left-handed cutter, a right-handed cutter, and a straight cutter. Those ones are right-handed cutters, but they seem to work good for just about everything. Okay, throw these around. Now, if you have a straight roof, it should be pretty easy. If your roof is crooked, it'll be less easy, but I'm gonna start off with hanging this over by 1 inch on the right side. And I'm gonna put a screw holding it down there. Grab another screw. Put it on my bit there. Make sure this is 1 inch overhang. And then put my next screw, I'm gonna put it right here. Now that will lock it in for the most part for being straight. But we're gonna leave it, we're not gonna screw the whole thing off until we get the next couple panels on. Because then we can see how square my roof was. And if it's off a little bit, if it's running downhill or uphill, I can adjust this first panel up or down to get me some more adjustment. So this is the hard part because usually, like I said, I could throw this next panel up, but since I got them drilled already, I'll have to lift this side up, slide it underneath. Not a big deal, but a pain nonetheless. So before you stick that next panel on, you can either do all these at once or as you go. I'm just doing them as I go because it's easier. Slide that in there. Tack it down right where those little lines are. I'm just putting it pretty much towards the end of the roof here. So there's no room for stuff to be. Now you can get these ones at the top too. When we get to the venting of the roof, I'll show that to you. But now I got to climb down and get a second piece and do that again. And here's a close-up of what it looks like. So I've got this one pretty much even with the end here. There's going to be a trim piece like this one right here, but I wanted to get this piece up here like I've said in the past before I get this piece on. So this is overhung by 3/4 of an inch. So, and this is hung over pretty close to that. And so when I put my corner piece on, it'll go over this rib and down the side, basically a corner drip edge. So I've got one screw there, basically locking this square. And I put my second sheet on underneath of this, put a screw in here, locking it down. So now that I'm pretty confident that we're running straight, at least for the most part, I'm gonna stick in a couple more screws up here to keep it from blowing off because the wind is an amazing, powerful thing. And sometimes it comes ripping through here. Thankfully, this direction gets less wind, so it's pretty likely to stay, but I'd rather be safe than sorry. So I'll put a few more screws in there. And then once I get all the panels all the way across to the end, I can screw the whole thing off. Here, let me climb up here and show you what it looks like, if I can do that safely. So here's the other side of the roof. A little sneak peek of what it looks like when it's finished. As you can see, I've got all my screws in. And I started on this side and worked my way across. And then when I got to this panel, I cut it to go underneath, and then I bent up the corners here. Even though I'm gonna have a drip edge coming through here, I wanted that to be bent up so if any water does get right here, it hits that and then runs down the sheet instead of possibly going in there. So since I have a block there, I couldn't run this all the way up. So bent that there and then worked my way all the way across. And then as you can tell, the ribs line up, which is nice. And at the end down here, I had to cut the panel even with the end. And the same thing, I bent it up with a 3/4 inch bender. All I used was, and it's not down there, but I have a tool that I use to bend up for HVAC stuff, and you can just slide it in there, bend it up. So nothing fancy. It's just to keep the water from going down in there. So once I get that corner piece on again, it'll be all waterproof. So anyways, I'm gonna move on through here, and then I'll bring you back once I'm doing the bending or the final trim pieces. Okay, we've got the metal up here and screwed off on the bottom and one up here. We're running out of screws, so I'm trying to be sparing, but keep it down still. But we've got up to this point. We need to cut this piece. So we're gonna measure from here up to that block up yonder. And so that gave us measurements of 87 cents, I think about money, 87 inches. And then we measured from the edge of this rib over to here, and that gave us a measurement of 24 5/8. So I'm gonna go mark that sheet down there, and I'll show you how to bend it. Okay, so we measured up from the bottom up to here, made a mark with our black marker on black metal, which is hard to see, and then made our mark from here, which is 24 5/8, but then I added 3/4 of an inch because I'm going to be bending it up with this sheet metal bender that you use for, like, when you're bending sheet metal for ductwork and stuff. So now I'm going to take my cutters and I'm going to cut this line. And once that's cut, I'm going to take this side because it's a 3/4 inch there. I think that side's a 1/4. I'm going to slide it on here. There are lots of other tools to do this with, but that's what I have. I'm going to bend it up. And then slide it off. Put it down here. On here. Just keep working that up till it's straight. Just like that, we have our waterproof edge, and this will be underneath the roof, so not a big deal. But you could bend this up if you're worried about any rain-driven rain getting in there, water, but I'm not worried about that because that's under the roof. So let's install it. And just like that, that piece is installed up nice and tight under all the way up there. And then where it's exposed here, it's got that bend. Where's my hand? Right up against there. So that's nice. So we got to finish screwing off this section once we get more screws. And then we've got a little piece here, which will bend up just the same here. And then a little piece on the other side. And then we can start doing the trims, which I had to put, like I already talked about, this piece here. And then put the trim over top of that. So anyways, I'll show that to you once we get to it. So looking good though. And that is all the screws. Now I've moved my scaffolding over here. And I'm getting ready to put the cap piece on here. But I want to point out something that you probably wouldn't see unless I shared it. Is that not every roof is perfect, especially when you don't do it every day. But I wanted this overhang down here to hang over 1 inch exactly, all the way across the bottom. And so that was more important to me than this right here, which I'll point out. And so that's perfectly 1 inch all the way down there. So when you're looking from the ground up at it, you'll see a perfect straight line. But if you do a straight line here and your roof isn't perfect, then you're going to come up with a sheet that maybe hangs over a little bit or is inside a little bit. Inside's not too bad because then you can cover it. But when it hangs over the edge, so you can see that it's almost flush with the end here, but when it gets up to here, it hung over probably a good 1/2 inch. And so I took my nibblers and I just cut the top of this rib down a bit. So that when I put this corner piece on, I can put it up nice and flush. So it isn't pretty, isn't perfect, but it is a pretty common thing to have happen. And that's something that it doesn't matter at all It just bothers me that I had to do it because I want to be perfect. But anyway, so now we got the corner piece here, and we're just gonna place it up here and then put the screws in over here. I was gonna show you that process, but my tripod took a dive off of here and broke, so we'll see what we can do. But anyways, I'm gonna put this corner piece on and show you what it looks like. Ta-da. Now that we have this piece on, we can work on this piece. This piece is already screwed on, as you can see. I did take a quick video before this one to explain some things up here, which I'm gonna redo because it just makes more sense. I was stuttering a bit on that one, so anyways, I've just overhung this on the end. I'm just gonna come back with my 10 snips and I'll cut this with I'll use a speed square, make a straight line and then cut it. So that can be run wild. And then you run this up here and you make this cut on this piece here. So this piece, you bring it just wild past, and then you take your level or speed square, whatever you want, and you line it up with this, make a mark, and then you can cut it. And so this is your perfect pitch cut. So you won't be able to see it from the ground very much, but I like to do that and then run this piece up underneath. So this piece is trimmed, but it goes all the way up here. So if water does get in there, it'll run down that. Not a big deal. And then on top of this, we'll go the cap, the ridge cap. But we'll get that cut once we do the ridge cap. So, and we put a screw there to hold those two together. It's neat. You can put one on each side if you want, but not super important. But I do like putting the one, so you're facing the house mostly from this direction. So if you put your cut with this one underneath of it, you won't see that as much. Whereas you see a little bit of a gap. This will be sealed up once we get the roof cap on, ridge cap. But anyways, so if you're looking at it from this direction, you won't see it. So if we did that the opposite direction, you might see that. So anyways, keep that in mind when you're overlapping your metals. Try to, like on the drip edge and everything, we overlapped it from the back to the front. That way you won't see those. So anyways, I'm gonna cut that. And then after I get that done, I've got 1, 2, 3 more, and then we'll do the ridge cap all the way across. So I'll bring you back when we do the ridge cap, because that's basically the last thing. And just like that, we're back. So we've got all of the trims on all the way around on all the corners, and now we're working on the ridge cap, and I've got it staged in the process here that we can see the steps that I'm taking. So you've got the underlayment, that gray stuff, which is overlapped from both sides. That is just to keep the roof watertight until we got the roof on. But now that we've got the roof on, we want to cut that back, because underneath of it there needs to be a gap where the air is going to flow from the soffit above the insulation in the roof and then out this hole. So the heat will transfer, cold air will come in, heat will go out. That's the plan. So this is a finished ridge cap. It's dirty because it was the one on top, but the rain will clean it. And then over here is my example of cutting it back to let the air flow. So the air will flow through these ribs, but then it'll also flow. I'll show you once we do that work on the inside with the insulation, will make sense. But so using this ridge cap will allow the air to flow. I'll stop saying that, but anyways, then you've got this stuff, which is just to keep birds and insects and stuff from coming up in here. I did start with this underneath of this right here, but the screws were just ripping it to shreds. So I moved it to the next step. It'll still do the same thing. It's got an adhesive bottom to it, so it sticks down there. This actually comes like this wide, but it's really expensive. It's like $80 a roll. It's only 20 feet long, really expensive. So what I did was I bought 40 feet of it, and then I took a scissors and I cut those in half. And so instead of being one piece, I was able to use it for both sides. So we'll see if I regret that later. I don't think I will, but anyways, got the roof cut back, got the roof sheeting, the roof vapor barrier cut back, and now I'm putting on the ridge cap. This ridge cap is screwed on permanently. Next one will go from here to the end, and we'll screw it down. I usually screw every other rib. You can do every rib, we'll see. I can always come back and do it. Right now I'm running short of screws again, but I think I have enough to finish. If I just do every other rib, I can get more screws later. And on the end here, I bent it up, and so the water, once this ridge cap comes over, I'll bend it over the top of here, and I'll caulk this seam so it makes it nice and tight. watertight. So anyways, wish it wasn't so dirty, but is what it is. I'm gonna put these next pieces on. I'm gonna finish up the video. Okay guys, as you can tell, the sun is on its way down. It's been a full day of random finishes and touch-ups and everything. It's crazy. So got the ridge cap put on. I like to do it that way. I'm not sure if that's the way to do it, but it seems to be nicest to me. Everything lays flush and you can put some silicone underneath of it and keep it tight. Got all the ridge caps perfectly lined up, all screwed off, sealed where the joints are. And then the detail here turned out okay. I feel like there's a better way to do it, but I couldn't think of a better way. So the bottom is of course tucked up underneath, and the top wraps over the top, and then it's silicone behind, and then sealed with the screws. And so it's not like beautiful, but it's pretty good looking, if I say so myself. So anyways, got all the corners on. The only thing the roof is lacking right now, which I'll do in the future. Right now it's not important because the inside's more important now, but I'm gonna put a piece of trim, a black trim underneath here to dress this up a bit. Doesn't need it, but dressing it up would be nice. And then underneath there, where the edge is, needs a corner trim like this, but we don't have enough of it because we used every piece of it for the roof. But I'm probably gonna do a little different detail there than we did everywhere else. So anyways, it doesn't look so nice. Screws all perfectly lined up, ridge cap perfectly straight, watertight, airflow from inside of the soffits up through there and out, so that should keep the any moisture that does get in there, which it won't, will dry it out because of the air ventilation. So anyways, what's your thoughts? Now I'm going to turn you around and you're going to see me for the ending shot, but don't be shocked. I shaved my beard because there's just time. So anyways, before I turn you around and you're like, well, who's this? It's me, just without a beard and really tired looking. Man, I'm only 32 years old, which is pretty young still. But man, my back is so tired from bending over all day and climbing up and down that scaffolding. Just a pain. But anyways, I wanted to say thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I tried to film this entire roof process all in one video, so it could be 45 minutes to an hour. It's gonna be a long video. We will see. But anyways, finally got it done. Contemplating putting in some roof skylights above, because the loft is here and the bed's moved back there. Putting in some skylights would be pretty cool, but we'll see. We can always do that later. Not a big deal. Anyways, thanks very much for watching. Hope you have a good day. God bless. Catch you later.